I looked at him and I said, "How big are you?" And he said, "Big enough." I couldn't resist.
That's the beginning of true love.
And there's this big green monster, and I'm like, "What the hell is this?" I'm like, he's a monster? What's this?
That's the most powerful thing, is the commitment.
I knew after that date that I was going to marry him.
Hi, I'm Lou Ferrigno with my wife Carla Ferrigno. We've been married for 30 years.
We have 3 kids. Shauna, she's our eldest. She's 28 years old. And Louis is 24, Lou Jr. And Brent is 19. I was a psychotherapist and I decided to go back to the restaurant business to take a break. And I was managing TGI Fridays, and one night he came in. He was with some people under 21. I was in my office and they called the manager to the front door. So I went to the front door and I said, "What is it you need?" I wasn't in a very good mood. It was Friday night. I'd just broken up a fight at the bar. And that's what the manager had to do, whether I was a female or not. And the girl at the front door said, "Well, he wants to speak to you." So I go over and I look up, and this man, he weighed 300 pounds at that time. He was in the 2nd year of doing The Incredible Hulk. So I said, "Can I help you?" And he was really hard and tough, very macho Italian. And he said, "No, I want to see the manager." And I said, "I am the manager." And in those days, there were no women managers in restaurants, so I kind of gave him a break on that. But it was very upsetting, to say the least. Here I was doing this big job, and I wasn't even thought of as a manager. So he said to me, well, I'm with some people under 21, and I want to stay here and have dinner. And I said, "Sorry, but the rules are there's nobody under 21 allowed after 8 o'clock. So you'll have to leave." So I escorted them all out the front door, and he was going, "Can I do something?" But no, there was nothing he could do. So he left. And about a week later, he came back. It was the beginning of the evening, and he walks in the door, and I looked at this huge man. And I didn't like big men, Italian men or Scorpio men. And I looked at him and I said, "How big are you?" And he said, "Big enough." And
It's the first time she met a man.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know, but anyway. That was what my mother said.
Well, your mother was right.
Yeah, I know.
God bless her.
Yeah.
God bless her soul.
Mothers always know everything. So he went to sit down with his stunt double, and as I was walking through the restaurant in about half hour, he looks at me and he says, "Could you sit down and talk to me?" And I was like, "No, because I didn't do that. I couldn't do that. I was a woman in a management position that was very, unheard of in those days. So I didn't want to do that, but I couldn't resist. He had this sweetness about him, and I said, "Okay." So I sat down, and we just started to talk. And he asked me to go to breakfast with him, and I said, "No, I'm gonna go to breakfast at that 4 in the morning." And then he goes, "Well, okay, well, will you go with me to a Dolly Parton party?" And I'm thinking, what a jerk. He wants to impress me with Dolly Parton parties now. No. I said, "No." And he goes, "Can I have your phone number?" I said, "No." And he said, "Oh." I said, but I wanted to shut him up because he was very persistent. So I wanted to shut him up, and I just said, "Okay, tell you what, I'll give you my phone. I'll take your phone number, and maybe I'll call you someday." So he did. And I walked away. And
That's the version.
that's it. And a week later, I did call. I called him, and we had our first date, right?
Mm-hmm.
I picked up the phone and I called him. And I said, "This is Carla. You gave me your phone number, and I thought I'd give you a call." And he said, "Oh, would you like to go to dinner?" "Okay, I'll go." But I said, "I'll come to you." So, God, I didn't know what I was doing. I just wanted to go for some reason. So I went, got to his apartment here in Santa Monica. I was in Hollywood, and I got to his house, and I go in, and he looks at me, and he says to me, we come in, I sit down, we're talking for a couple minutes, and he says, "Do you want to see my show?" And I said, "What show?" And he said, "Well, I have a show on. It's at 8 o'clock on Friday nights." I said, "Okay." So I lay down on the floor, and I'm watching the show, and there's this big green monster, and I'm like, "What the hell is this?" I'm like, "He's a monster? What's this?" So we watched it, and then we went to dinner, and I knew after that date that I was going to marry him. I knew. I just, you know what? I dated for years. I just knew. And I even called my mother and told her that I'd met the man I was going to marry when I got home the next day. And he came back to my house the next day and came right to Hollywood and said, "Would you go out with me tonight?"
It's funny how you meet, and then we met by accident. Because sometimes when you want to meet someone, it's kind of hard because you have to put up defenses, and then everything is staged and everything, like blind dates and everything. And this situation just happened by accident, and that's how the beginning of true love.
The first night I met him, he said to me, "So, how old are you?" And I told him, and he goes,
"You said you were
Are you married?" I said, "Are you married?" And he said, I said to him, "No." And he goes, "How come you're this age and not married?" And I said, "Because I've never met a man I wanted to marry." And he goes, "Oh, okay." On the airplane, he said to me, and we were in a first class flight, we were sitting there, and he said, "Why don't we just get married?" And I was like,
Wow, yeah.
"What?" And he said, "Yeah, let's get married." And I said, "Well, we'll think about it." And then we got home, and then it was kind of hush hush, and then I didn't want to get married. It was too soon. It was just too soon for me. And so we continued our life, and I quit work, and I quit that business, and then just took over the business completely in 6 months. At 6 months, he said, "Now we're getting married." And we went out, and we got a ring, and we got engaged. I said, "Okay, we can get engaged, not married."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Okay." So he took me to buy, and
Wow.
he bought me a beautiful
30 years, wow.
Yeah, and he bought me this beautiful diamond watch, and we got my engagement ring, and then he wanted to get married, and then I'm like, I don't want to get married, no. And so I just wasn't convinced that marriage was really the way to go yet. And then I was getting to an age where I was thinking, you know what, I'm going to want children, and let's get real. I would never have wanted children without a marriage, and yet if I didn't get married, I probably wouldn't have had kids. So I said, no, kids are a thought now, because I knew him, and they had never been a thought before. So then at 9 months, he said, can we get married? And I said, okay. I had my engagement ring. I said, okay. So we set it up, and we had a really hard time setting it up, because we were going to go we couldn't go on a honeymoon, because he was filming, he was doing the Hulk, and he was working 80 hours a week, and we were traveling to other countries. So it was hard. So we didn't have a honeymoon for a little bit, and then the Inquirer paid for the honeymoon in Tahiti. They came along with us, but they weren't intrusive. They were really nice. They treated us really, really good. And what was really cool was when our babies were born, our first baby, they came to the house with Shauna 8 days after she was born and did pictures and did a story. And then the second one was born again 8 days later and did the story. And then on the third one, 8 days later, all of them had the story in the Inquirer, and in the second one, we even had our clothes were the same. We did the same clothes. It was so funny. I had to dress up in the same clothes just for fun. We did that, and they were always good to us.